He called her baby a mistake in public. The billionaire who heard it fell dangerously in love with her. The restaurant fell silent as Derek's voice cut through the air like a blade. "This baby isn't mine," he shouted, jabbing his finger at Janelle's 7-month belly while his new girlfriend smirked beside him. Janelle's hands trembled as she clutched her rounded stomach, humiliation burning through her veins. She didn't see the tall man in the corner booth rise to his feet, his jaw clenched, his eyes blazing with a fury that would change everything. "You trapped me." Derek's voice climbed higher, drawing every eye in the upscale bistro. His new girlfriend, Amber, a blonde with sharp features and sharper smile, leaned into him possessively. "You thought getting pregnant would keep me, but I'm not falling for it." Janelle Kendrick stood frozen beside the table, her hand protective over the swell of her belly where Isaiah, her son, her miracle, her future, moved restlessly. She'd worn her nicest maternity dress for this meeting, navy blue that she'd bought secondhand but pressed carefully. She'd done her hair, applied makeup, to hide the exhaustion that came from working 2 graphic design jobs while 7 months pregnant. She'd hoped, foolishly, that seeing her like this would wake something in Derek. Some buried decency. Some recognition that he'd once claimed to love her. Instead, she got this, public execution disguised as dinner. "Derek, please," her voice came out smaller than she intended. "Can we talk about this privately?" "Why?" Amber interjected, her voice saccharine poison. "So you can manipulate him some more? Everyone should know what kind of woman you are. Desperate, pathetic, trapping a man with a baby." The words landed like physical blows. Janelle felt her face flush hot, then cold. Around them, other diners watched with expressions ranging from pity to judgment. An older woman whispered to her companion. A young couple quickly looked away. The server hovering nearby seemed uncertain whether to intervene or flee. "I never trapped anyone," Janelle managed, her voice gaining strength even as her hands shook. "You said you loved me. You said we'd figure it out together." "I lied." Derek's smile was cruel. "You were convenient, fun for a while. But a baby?" He laughed, harsh and cutting. "I'm 28 years old. I have a career to build. I'm not throwing my life away on your mistake." "He's not a mistake." The words came out fierce, protective. Janelle's hand spread across her belly, feeling Isaiah kick as if responding to her distress. "He's a baby, your baby, whether you want to admit it or not." "Prove it." Derek leaned back, crossing his arms. "Oh, wait, you can't. Not until it's born. And even then I'll demand testing, because I'm not paying for some kid that might not even be mine." The injustice of it, the sheer cruelty, threatened to buckle Janelle's knees. There had been no one else. In their 2 years. Together, she'd been faithful, loving, committed. The pregnancy had been unplanned but not unwelcome, at least not to her. Derek had changed the moment she'd told him, his warm brown eyes turning cold, his promises evaporating like morning mist. "You know he's yours," she whispered. "You know." "What I know," Derek said, standing now, Amber rising with him, "is that you're on your own. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't show up at my apartment. This?" He gestured at her pregnant form with disgust. "This is your problem, not mine." Janelle felt something inside her crack, not break. She was stronger than that, had to be stronger for Isaiah, but definitely crack. The restaurant swam slightly, tears threatening despite her fierce attempt to hold them back. That's when the tall man reached their table. Brandon Hammond had been trying to enjoy a quiet dinner alone, reviewing contracts on his tablet while eating steak he barely tasted. At 42, he'd built Hammond Industries from a single tech startup into a diversified empire worth billions. He ate alone often, worked late always, and told himself the emptiness was the price of success. Then he'd heard the shouting. He'd looked up to see a young black woman, visibly pregnant, being berated by a man who wore cruelty like cologne. Brandon had watched her face, beautiful even in distress, expressive dark eyes fighting tears, natural hair pulled back to reveal elegant features, cycle through hurt, anger, and finally, devastating resignation. Something in him, something he thought he'd buried beneath 15 years of ruthless business dealings, roared to life. He stood. At 6 feet 3 inches, with the build of someone who used his home gym religiously and the presence of someone used to commanding boardrooms, Brandon's approach made people instinctively move aside. He crossed the restaurant in long strides, his Italian leather shoes silent on the polished floor. You're done here." His voice wasn't loud, but it carried, deep, authoritative, absolutely certain. Derek spun, his expression shifting from cruel satisfaction to confusion. "Who the hell are you?" Brandon ignored him, his attention on Janelle. Up close, he could see the tears she was fighting, the tremor in her hands as they cradled her belly, the way she held herself together through sheer willpower. He also saw her strength, the tilt of her chin, the fire still burning in her eyes despite the humiliation, the protective curve of her body around her unborn child. "Let me take you home." He extended his hand to her, palm up, an offering rather than a demand. Janelle stared at this stranger, this tall white man in an expensive charcoal suit with steel gray eyes and dark hair touched with silver at the temples. She should refuse, should handle this herself, should maintain what little dignity she had left. But those eyes, they didn't hold pity. They held recognition. Like he saw her, really saw her, past the pregnant, belly and public humiliation to the woman beneath. Her hand moved before her brain fully processed the decision, sliding into his. His palm was warm, his grip firm but careful, and the contact sent unexpected awareness through her overwrought nervous system. "Now wait just a minute," Derek started. Brandon turned his head, and whatever Derek saw in his expression made him step back. "I said you're done. You've humiliated this woman enough. Leave. Now." "You can't tell me." "Actually, I can." Brandon's voice dropped to something cold and dangerous. "I'm Brandon Hammond. I own this restaurant, and 12 others in this city. And unless you want to find yourself blacklisted from every decent establishment, you'll leave. Immediately." Derek's face paled. Even Amber looked uncertain now, her smirk fading. "This isn't over," Derek blustered, but he was already moving toward the exit, pulling Amber with him. "She's going to come crying to me when she realizes how hard single motherhood is, and I'll tell her the same thing. Not my problem." Brandon watched them leave, his jaw tight with controlled anger. Then he looked down at Janelle, his expression softening. "Can you walk?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. He didn't let go of her hand, instead placing his other hand at the small of her back, guiding her through the restaurant. The warmth of his palm through the thin fabric of her dress created a point of heat she focused on, using it to anchor herself as they passed the staring diners. Outside, the cool evening air hit her face, and she gulped it gratefully. Brandon's hand remained at her back, steady, grounding. "My car's just here." He gestured to a sleek black sedan parked at the curb, expensive but understated, nothing flashy. He opened the passenger door, one hand hovering protectively near her elbow as she maneuvered her pregnant body into the seat. He adjusted the seat carefully, pushing it back to give her belly room, tilting it slightly for comfort. "Is that okay?" She nodded, still not speaking, afraid that if she started talking, she'd start crying and never stop. Brandon rounded the car and slid into the driver's seat, but he didn't start the engine immediately. Instead, he turned to her, his gray eyes searching her face. "Are you hurt? Did he touch you?" "No." Her voice came out rough and she cleared her throat. "He just... words. Just words. Words can wound deeper than fists." He said it like he knew from experience. They sat in silence for a moment, the city sounds muted through the car's excellent insulation. Janelle became acutely aware of everything, the leather seat beneath her, the subtle scent of his cologne mixing with something uniquely him, the way his hands rested on the steering wheel, strong and capable. "I'm sorry," she said suddenly. "You didn't need to get involved. I could have handled it." "I know you could have." He said it with such certainty that she looked at him in surprise. "But you shouldn't have had to. Not alone. Not like that." The kindness in his voice, after Derek's cruelty, cracked her careful control. A tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. She turned away quickly, swiping at it, furious with herself for showing weakness to this stranger who'd already done too much. She felt him move, heard the rustle of fabric. Then a handkerchief appeared in her peripheral vision, actual cloth, monogrammed, the kind nobody carried anymore. She took it, their fingers brushing, and that contact sent another unexpected jolt through her. "Thank you," she whispered, pressing the soft fabric to her eyes. "You're welcome." He paused, then asked gently, "Where can I take you?" She gave him her address, a modest apartment building in a working-class neighborhood on the east side. The contrast between her world and his became immediately apparent in his momentary hesitation. Not judgment, she realized, but calculation. Probably wondering if his expensive car would still have wheels when he left. He started the engine, pulled smoothly into traffic. They drove in silence for several minutes, Janelle staring out the window, one hand on her belly feeling Isaiah's movements. The baby was active tonight, responding to her stress. She rubbed gentle circles, silently reassuring him. "How far along are you?" Brandon's question was quiet, not intrusive. 7 months, well, 30 weeks. She found herself answering despite her intention to stay silent. "He's due in 10 weeks. He? Isaiah." Saying his name out loud to this stranger felt oddly intimate. "I'm naming him Isaiah." "That's a strong name." Brandon's voice held approval. "Means salvation of God, doesn't it?" She looked at him in surprise. "Most people don't know that." "My mother was religious. I grew up knowing Bible names." He smiled slightly, eyes on the road. "I'm Brandon, by the way. Brandon Hammond." "I know, you said." The restaurant owner. She paused. "I'm Janelle Kendrick." "Nice to meet you, Janelle. I'm sorry it's under these circumstances." They lapsed into silence again, but it felt less heavy now. Janelle found herself studying him from the corner of her eye, the strong profile, the capable hands on the wheel, the hint of silver at his temples that suggested he was older than her 26 years. Everything about him screamed wealth and success, from his tailored suit to his confident bearing. What was someone like him doing intervening in her messy life? "Can I ask you something?" she heard herself say. "Anything." "Why did you help me? You don't know me. That wasn't your problem." Brandon was quiet for a long moment, navigating through traffic. When he finally spoke, his voice held something raw beneath the polished surface. "My mother raised me and my brother alone. Our father left when I was 8. Daniel was 5. She worked 3 jobs to keep us fed and housed. I remember how hard it was for her, how people judged her, how men treated her, either like she was desperate and available, or like she was a cautionary tale." He glanced at her, then back to the road. "I remember one night, I was maybe 12. We were at a grocery store. A man, some guy in a suit, made a comment about her, about how women like her shouldn't have kids they can't afford, how she was probably on welfare, living off taxpayers. She didn't say anything, just held her head high and finished shopping. But I saw her cry in the car afterward. The only time I ever saw her cry." Janelle's throat tightened. "I'm sorry. She died 5 years ago. Cancer." His jaw clenched. "But she got to see Daniel and me succeed. Got to know that her sacrifices meant something. Got to retire in comfort, finally. That meant everything to me." "She sounds like an amazing woman." "She was." He paused. "When I saw that man belittling you, treating you like you were nothing because you're pregnant and alone, I saw my mother, and I thought, if someone had stood up for her, even once, maybe she wouldn't have cried in that car. Maybe she would have felt less alone." The raw honesty in his words undid something in Janelle. Fresh tears spilled over, but they felt different now. Not humiliation, but recognition, being seen, being understood. "You're not alone anymore," Brandon said quietly. "I don't know what that means yet, but you're not alone." They pulled up outside her building, a tired 3-story walk-up with chipped paint and a broken elevator. Brandon parked, turned off the engine. "You don't need to walk me up," Janelle said quickly, suddenly embarrassed by the contrast between his world and hers. "I know I don't need to." He was already out of the car, coming around to open her door. "But I'd like to, if you'll let me." She let him help her out, his hand warm and steady on her elbow. They climbed the stairs slowly, Brandon staying close, his hand hovering near her back as if ready to catch her if she stumbled. By the time they reached the 3rd floor, Janelle was breathing hard, frustrated with her pregnant body's limitations. At her door, she fumbled with her keys, nerves and exhaustion making her clumsy. Brandon's hand came up to steady hers, and she froze at the contact. His palm was warm, encompassing hers completely, and for a moment they stood there, her key halfway to the lock, his hand covering hers. She looked up. He was close enough that she could see the flecks of darker gray in his eyes, close enough that she caught his scent, cedar and something crisp, expensive but not overwhelming. Close enough that her breath stuttered, his eyes dropped to her mouth, lingered there for a heartbeat, then returned to her eyes. Something passed between them, electric and unexpected. Isaiah kicked hard, and Janelle's free hand went instinctively to her belly, breaking the moment. Brandon's gaze followed the movement, something unreadable crossing his face. Not disgust or discomfort, but something else. Something that looked almost like longing. "You're not alone anymore," he repeated softly. He released her hand, reached into his wallet, extracted a business card, pressed it into her palm, his thumb brushing across her knuckles in a gesture that lingered one heartbeat too long. "Call me. For anything. I mean that, Janelle. Anything at all." She looked down at the card, thick, expensive stock with embossed lettering. Brandon Hammond, CEO, Hammond Industries, multiple phone numbers and email address. "I can't," she started. "You can." His voice was firm but gentle. "You don't have to face this alone. Let me help." "Why?" The question burst out of her. "Why would you do that? You don't owe me anything." He was quiet for a moment, studying her face with an intensity that made her feel exposed. "Maybe I'm doing it for my mother. Maybe I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. Or maybe," he paused, something vulnerable flickering in his eyes. "Maybe I'm doing it because when I looked at you tonight, I saw someone worth knowing. Someone strong and fierce and beautiful, even in her worst moment. And I want to know what she's like in her best ones." The words hung between them, enormous and impossible. Before Janelle could respond, Brandon stepped back, putting distance between them. "Good night, Janelle. Call me, please." He walked away, and she stood at her door, watching him go, the business card warm in her hand and something equally warm unfurling in her chest, something terrifying and hopeful all at once. Inside her apartment, Janelle leaned against the closed door, one hand on her belly, the other clutching Brandon's card. Isaiah kicked steadily, and she rubbed her stomach absently. "Well, little one," she whispered, "I don't know what just happened, but I think maybe everything just changed. Have you ever had a stranger show you more kindness than the person who was supposed to love you? Tell me about it in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from, and hit subscribe if you're already feeling the chemistry between Janelle and Brandon." The next morning arrived too soon, sunlight streaming through Janelle's small apartment windows with aggressive cheerfulness. She woke to Isaiah's familiar acrobatics, his kicks stronger now, a reminder that she had 10 weeks to figure out how to do this alone. Except Brandon's words echoed in her head. "You're not alone anymore." She sat up carefully, her back protesting, and immediately noticed his handkerchief on her nightstand, neatly folded. Next to it, his business card, evidence that last night had been real, not some stress-induced hallucination. Her phone showed 17 missed calls and twice as many texts. She scrolled through them with growing dread. Her mother, Nessa, her best friend, Katie. Both had seen the social media posts, because of course someone had filmed Derek's restaurant outburst. Of course it was already making rounds online with cruel hashtags: baby mama drama, gold digger caught, pregnancy trap fail. Janelle's hands shook as she read comment after vicious comment. Strangers dissecting her appearance, her choices, her worth, debating whether Derek was right to reject her, speculating about whether she'd tried to trap him. The cruelty was breathtaking in its casual efficiency. She was about to throw her phone across the room when a new notification popped up. An email from a company she'd never heard of, Meridian Creative Solutions. Subject line: Design Project Opportunity. Despite her emotional state, professional curiosity made her open it. The email outlined a branding project, rebranding campaign for a boutique hotel chain, substantial budget, flexible timeline perfect for someone about to have a baby. Exactly the kind of work she needed, exactly the kind of project she'd been trying to land for months. At the bottom, a name she didn't recognize: Jennifer Martinez, Creative Director. Janelle stared at the email, suspicion blooming. This was too convenient, too perfectly timed. Before she could overthink it, her apartment buzzer rang. She hauled herself up, waddled to the intercom. "Yes? Janelle, let me up. It's Katie." She buzzed her friend in, then spent the next 2 minutes trying to make herself presentable. Futile effort. Katie burst through the door like a hurricane, immediately wrapping Janelle in a fierce hug. Katie Washington was petite, energetic, with light brown skin, natural curls, and the kind of protective loyalty that made her dangerous when people she loved were threatened. She'd been Janelle's best friend since high school, the sister she'd chosen. "I'm going to murder him," Katie announced, releasing Janelle and marching into the tiny apartment like she owned it. "I'm going to find Derek Whitley and I'm going to murder him slowly, with rusty spoons. Have you seen what people are saying online? Unfortunately, it's garbage, all of it. Anyone with eyes can see you're not—" Katie stopped mid-rant, really looking at Janelle. "Wait, something's different. What happened after the restaurant?" And just like that, Janelle found herself telling the whole story. Brandon's intervention, the drive home, his card, the things he'd said. Katie listened with increasingly wide eyes. "Brandon Hammond," Katie repeated slowly when Janelle finished. "Brandon Hammond. Janelle, do you know who that is? He said he owns restaurants. He owns everything." Katie was already pulling out her phone, fingers flying. "Look, Forbes list, self-made billionaire, tech genius, started his first company at 25, sold it for millions, built Hammond Industries from there. He's worth," she scrolled frantically, $3.7 billion. The number hung in the air, absurd and impossible. Chapter 2. Janelle felt the room tilt slightly. That can't be right. It's absolutely right. Look. Katie shoved the phone at her. There was Brandon, photographed at some charity gala, looking commanding in a tuxedo. Another photo of him shaking hands with the mayor, an article about his latest tech acquisition. He's like legitimately famous, in business circles anyway, known for being ruthlessly smart and intensely private. Doesn't do interviews, avoids social events when he can, never brings dates to public functions. "So what's someone like that doing rescuing waitresses?" Janelle muttered. "You're a graphic designer," Katie corrected sharply. "And apparently he has a thing for strong women who need a hand up, not a handout, based on what you said about his mother." Janelle looked at Brandon's business card, sitting innocently on her coffee table. "This is insane. People like him they don't get involved with people like me." "Why not?" Katie's voice was fierce. "You're talented, intelligent, beautiful, and about to be a mother. What's not to get involved with? I'm 7 months pregnant with another man's baby. A man who publicly humiliated me and wants nothing to do with his own child. Sounds like that man is an idiot, and Brandon Hammond is smart enough to see what he couldn't." Katie sat down next to her, taking her hand. "Look, I get it. This is overwhelming. But maybe, just maybe, something good can come from last night's disaster. Maybe this is the universe correcting Derek's cruelty with someone who actually sees your worth." Before Janelle could respond, her phone rang. "Unknown number," she answered hesitantly. "Hello? Miss Kendrick? This is Dr. Reynolds' office. We're calling about your outstanding balance." Janelle's stomach dropped. Her OB/GYN bills had been piling up, and she'd been scraping together what she could, but she was still behind. "I know, I'm working on a payment plan. Actually, that's why we're calling. An anonymous donor has paid your balance in full. We wanted to confirm you received the notification and thank the appropriate party." The room went silent except for the blood rushing in Janelle's ears. "I'm sorry. What?" "Your balance has been paid. All of it, including prepayment for the delivery and 2 weeks of postpartum care. We just need you to confirm." "I didn't authorize that." Her voice came out strangled. "Who paid it?" "I'm sorry, Miss Kendrick. The donor requested anonymity, but your account is current, and you don't need to worry about any medical bills." Janelle ended the call with shaking hands. Katie was staring at her. What was that? "Someone paid my medical bills, anonymously." She looked at the business card again, fury building beneath shock. "That son of a—" "Hold on," Katie interrupted. "Before you get mad, think about this. You needed help. Someone helped. Is that really so terrible? It's charity. It's kindness." Katie's voice was firm. "And there's a difference. Charity makes you feel small. Kindness makes you feel seen. Which one did Brandon make you feel last night?" Janelle opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. Because Katie was right. Brandon hadn't made her feel small or pitied. He'd made her feel protected, valued, worth defending. But this was too much. Medical bills, mysterious job opportunities. He was interfering in her life without permission, making decisions for her. And she'd fought too hard for independence to let anyone, even someone with good intentions, take it away. I need to talk to him. Janelle stood, decision made. I need to tell him he can't do this. You're going to march into a billionaire's office 7 months pregnant and tear him a new one? Katie grinned. Can I come? Because I desperately want to watch that. No, this is between him and me. Katie's expression softened. Janelle, be mad if you need to be, but maybe, just maybe, let yourself accept help for once. You've been doing this alone for so long. You don't have to anymore. An hour later, Janelle stood in the lobby of Hammond Industries, a gleaming tower of steel and glass in the financial district. Everything about the building screamed money and power, from the marble floors to the modern art installations, to the impeccably dressed people moving with purpose through the space. She felt desperately out of place in her stretchy maternity jeans and oversized sweater, her pregnant belly announcing itself prominently. The receptionist, a polished woman in her 30s, looked up with professional smile. Can I help you? I need to see Brandon Hammond. The smile became apologetic. Do you have an appointment? No, but Mr. Hammond doesn't see anyone without an appointment. If you'd like to schedule, tell him Janelle Kendrick is here. She said it with more confidence than she felt. Tell him it's urgent. The receptionist's expression suggested she'd heard similar claims before. Miss, I really can't disturb Mr. Hammond without— It's fine, Rebecca. A new voice interrupted. A man approached, tall and lean with light brown hair and assessing blue eyes. He wore a suit that probably cost more than Janelle's monthly rent and an expression of polite curiosity. I'll take care of this. Mr. Novak, I was just explaining— I know, thank you. He turned to Janelle, extending his hand. Alex Novak, Mr. Hammond's business partner. You're here to see Brandon? Janelle shook his hand warily. Yes, it's personal. I gathered. Something knowing flickered in his eyes. He mentioned he might have a visitor today. Come with me. He led her to a private elevator, swiped a keycard, pressed the button for the top floor. As they rose, Alex studied her with the kind of sharp assessment that made Janelle feel like a balance sheet being audited. How do you know Brandon? He asked mildly. We met last night. He helped me with a situation. Brandon's good at helping with situations. Alex's tone was neutral, but she heard the question underneath. What kind of situation? And what do you want from him? I'm not here for money, she said flatly, or anything else he might think I want. I'm here because he overstepped, and we need to clear some things up. Alex's eyebrows rose. You're here to yell at him? Possibly. A smile tugged at his mouth. This I have to see. Brandon hasn't had anyone yell at him in years. Everyone's too afraid of him. I'm not afraid of him. I can see that. The elevator doors opened onto an expansive floor with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic city views. His office is straight ahead. Fair warning, he's in a meeting. But I think he'll want to be interrupted for this. Alex knocked once on the massive wooden doors, then pushed them open. Brandon? You have a visitor. Brandon was standing at his desk, reviewing documents with two executives. He looked up and Janelle watched recognition flare in his eyes, followed by something that looked like pleasure before settling into concern. Gentlemen, we'll continue this later. His voice carried quiet authority that had both men gathering their papers immediately. They filed out, giving Janelle curious glances. Alex lingered in the doorway. Should I stay? No. Brandon's eyes never left Janelle. Thank you, Alex. The door closed with a soft click, leaving them alone in his enormous office. Floor-to-ceiling windows on 2 walls, leather furniture, expensive art, but somehow not ostentatious. Tasteful, sophisticated, like the man himself. Brandon rounded his desk, closing the distance between them. He'd shed his suit jacket, his white shirt rolled up to reveal forearms that suggested regular gym time. Janelle, is everything all right? Is Isaiah is fine. Her voice came out sharper than intended. We need to talk. He studied her face, reading her anger. You found out about the medical bills. And the job offer. From a company I've never heard of that coincidentally needs exactly the kind of work I do, with exactly the kind of timeline I need. She crossed her arms over her belly, a defensive posture she couldn't help. "What else, Brandon? What else did you arrange without asking me?" He had the grace to look slightly guilty. "Your landlord agreed to fix the elevator and heating system. I may have suggested that building code violations could be expensive if reported to the city." "Of course you did." Anger and something more complicated warred in her chest. "You can't do this." "Why not?" "Because I didn't ask for your help. I don't need your charity." "It's not charity." He stepped closer, and she held her ground even though proximity to him did strange things to her pulse. "The job is real, Janelle. The client saw your portfolio, which is exceptional, by the way, and wanted to hire you. I may have facilitated the introduction, but the work is yours based on merit." "And the medical bills?" "That was charity," he admitted, "but necessary charity. You're 7 months pregnant, working 2 jobs and drowning in medical debt. That's not safe for you or Isaiah. So yes, I paid it, and I'd do it again. You don't get to make those decisions for me." "Then what should I have done?" His voice rose slightly, frustration bleeding through his usual control. "Watched you work yourself into exhaustion, waited until stress affected your pregnancy, let you face this alone when I have the resources to help?" "Yes, because it's my life, my choices. I've been taking care of myself since I was 18 years old, and I don't need some billionaire swooping in to rescue me like I'm helpless." They were standing too close now, both breathing hard from the intensity of the argument. She could see a muscle ticking in his jaw, could feel the heat radiating from his body, could smell that cedar scent that had haunted her thoughts all night. "You're not helpless," he said, voice low and intense. "You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. But strength doesn't mean you have to do everything alone. It doesn't mean you can't accept help when it's offered." "Offered," she repeated. "You didn't offer. You just did it." "You're right." He ran a hand through his hair, disheveling it in a way that made him look younger, more vulnerable. "I'm used to identifying problems and fixing them. It's what I do. But I should have asked first. I'm sorry." The apology took the wind out of her anger. She'd been prepared for defensiveness, for arrogance, for him to dismiss her concerns. The genuine regret in his voice disarmed her completely. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted quietly. "I don't know how to let someone help. Everyone who's tried, they always want something in return, or they make me feel small for needing them. I can't," her voice cracked. "I can't be someone's charity case, Brandon. I can't be the pregnant woman you feel sorry for." "Is that what you think?" He looked genuinely pained. "That I pity you? Don't you?" He stared at her for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. Then, slowly, deliberately, he reached out and cupped her face with one hand. His palm was warm against her cheek, his thumb brushing just below her eye with a tenderness that made her lungs forget their purpose. "I don't pity you, Janelle. I admire you. You're building a life for your son while facing judgment and abandonment and financial struggle, and you're doing it with your head held high. You have every right to be bitter or defeated, but instead, you're fierce and protective and determined." His eyes searched hers. "When I look at you, I don't see someone who needs saving. I see someone worth knowing, someone I want in my life. And if helping with practical matters means you'll let me be in yours, then I'm going to keep doing it." The words hung between them, weighted with meaning neither was quite ready to examine. Janelle's hand came up to cover his where it rested against her face, and she realized she was trembling. "Why?" The question came out barely above a whisper. "Why do you want to be in my life? You don't know me." "I want to." His voice was rough with an emotion she couldn't name. "I want to know everything. What makes you laugh? What you dream about? What Isaiah's first kicks felt like. I want to know the woman who walks into a billionaire's office, 7 months pregnant, and tears into him for trying to help. I want to know you, Janelle." Isaiah chose that moment to kick hard, and Janelle gasped at the sensation. Brandon's hand dropped from her face to hover near her belly, uncertain. "Can I?" He stopped, looking suddenly vulnerable in a way that didn't fit with the powerful businessman image. "May I?" She took his hand and placed it on her stomach where Isaiah was performing acrobatics. Brandon's eyes widened as he felt the movement beneath his palm. "That's amazing," he breathed. "He's strong. He's active, especially when I'm stressed." She smiled despite herself. I think he's reacting to our argument. Then I should stop arguing with you. Brandon's hand spread wider across her belly, warm and reverent. I'm sorry, Isaiah. I didn't mean to upset your mom. Something about the way he spoke to her unborn son, the gentle apology, the careful touch, it cracked something open in Janelle's chest. This man, this powerful stranger, was treating her baby like he mattered, like they both mattered. The job, she said quietly. Is it really legitimate? Completely. Meridian Creative is a subsidiary, yes, but they need a designer, and your portfolio genuinely impressed Jennifer Martinez. She's tough. She won't coddle you or accept subpar work just because I know you. If you take the job, you'll earn every penny. Janelle studied his face, looking for deception, finding only honesty. And the medical bills? Consider it an investment in Isaiah's health, and yours. His hand was still on her belly, feeling their son move. Please, Janelle, let me do this one thing. Not because you need me to, but because I need to. Because the idea of you stressed about money while pregnant keeps me awake at night. You barely know me. Why would it keep you awake? His eyes met hers, and the intensity in them stole her breath. I don't know, but it does. They stood like that, his hand on her belly, eyes locked, something profound passing between them. The air felt charged, electric, full of possibility and danger in equal measure. Janelle's phone rang, shattering the moment. She stepped back, pulling away from his touch, even though part of her wanted to stay exactly where she was. She glanced at the screen. Her mother. I need to take this, she said, her voice unsteady. Of course. Brandon stepped back too, giving her space, though his eyes never left her face. She answered. Hi, Mama. Janelle Marie Kendrick. Her mother's voice carried the particular tone that meant trouble. I've been calling you all morning. I saw what happened online. Are you all right? Where are you? I'm fine, Mama. I'm just handling some things. What things? Baby, you need to come stay with me. You shouldn't be alone right now. I'm not alone. The words came out before she could stop them, and she saw Brandon's expression shift, something warm flickering in his eyes. What does that mean? Who's with you? Janelle looked at Brandon, at this man who'd inserted himself into her life with kindness and resources and an intensity she didn't know how to process. I'll explain later, Mama, I promise, but I'm okay, really. After more reassurances, she ended the call. Brandon was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Your mother sounds protective, he observed. She is. Raised me alone like your mom did with you and your brother. Janelle tucked her phone away. She's going to have a lot of questions when I tell her about you. What will you tell her? I don't know. Janelle met his gaze. What are you, Brandon? What is this? He was quiet for a moment, considering. I don't know either, but I'd like to find out, if you'll let me. This is crazy, we barely know each other. Then let's change that. He moved to his desk, scribbled something on a notepad, tore off the page, and handed it to her. Have dinner with me. Tonight. Not a date, he added quickly, reading her hesitation. Just two people getting to know each other. Somewhere quiet where we can talk. Janelle looked at the address he'd written, her practical side warring with the part of her that wanted to say yes, that wanted to see where this impossible thing might lead. I'll think about it, she finally said. That's all I ask. He walked her to the door, his hand finding that spot at the small of her back that was becoming familiar. Janelle? Thank you for coming here, for telling me how you felt instead of just disappearing. I don't disappear, she said. I'm too stubborn for that. His smile was sunrise breaking across his face. I'm starting to realize that. It's one of the things I like about you. She left his office with his smile burned into her memory and his dinner invitation burning a hole in her pocket. In the elevator, alone, she pressed a hand to her racing pulse and whispered to Isaiah, What are we doing, little one? What are we getting ourselves into? Isaiah kicked in response, and she chose to interpret that as encouragement. That evening, Janelle stood in her tiny apartment, staring at her limited wardrobe options. She'd called Brandon 2 hours ago and said yes to dinner. Now she was second-guessing everything. Katie had arrived uninvited but welcome, and was currently pulling dresses from Janelle's closet with critical assessment. This one, Katie declared, holding up a deep plum-wrapped dress that Janelle had bought pre-pregnancy. "It'll work with your belly, and the color's gorgeous on you." "It's not a date," Janelle reminded her, even as she took the dress. "Right, and I'm the Queen of England." Katie flopped on the bed. "Janelle, the man paid your medical bills, got you a job, and asked you to dinner. That's date behavior." "He said it wasn't a date. Men always say that when they're nervous and don't want to pressure you. Trust me." Janelle changed into the dress, pleased to find it still fit, the wrap style accommodating her belly. She studied herself in the mirror. The dress hugged her curves, the deep color making her dark skin glow. She looked good. Pregnant, yes, but good. "You look beautiful," Katie said softly. "And Janelle? It's okay to want this, to want him. You're allowed to have something good. What if it ends badly? What if he realizes how complicated this is and walks away? What if he doesn't?" Katie stood, placing her hands on Janelle's shoulders, meeting her eyes in the mirror. "What if this is exactly what's supposed to happen? What if Derek's cruelty was just clearing the path for someone who actually deserves you?" The doorbell rang before Janelle could answer. Her heart jumped into her throat. "That's him," Katie said, grinning. "Go, have dinner with your not date, and text me everything." Brandon stood in her doorway, looking unfairly handsome in dark slacks and a charcoal sweater that made his gray eyes even more striking. He held flowers, not roses, but a mixed bouquet of sunflowers and purple irises that somehow felt more personal, more thoughtful. "These are for you," he said, and she noticed he looked nervous, which shouldn't have been endearing, but absolutely was. "They're beautiful, thank you." She took them, buried her nose in the petals to hide her own nerves. "Let me just put these in water." In the kitchen, filling a vase with shaking hands, she heard Katie introduce herself. "I'm Katie, Janelle's best friend and self-appointed security detail. You hurt her. I have connections to people who make problems disappear. Understood?" "Understood," Brandon replied, and Janelle heard amusement in his voice. "I have no intention of hurting her." "Good. Because that baby she's carrying? That's going to be my godson, and I'm extremely protective." Janelle rushed back to the living room before Katie could issue more threats. "Okay, we should go before Katie pulls out the shovel speech." Brandon helped her with her coat, his hands lingering at her shoulders. "I like your friend. She's loyal." "She's terrifying," Janelle corrected, "but yes, very loyal." In his car, Brandon drove them to a part of the city Janelle rarely visited. Old money neighborhood with tree-lined streets and historic brownstones. He pulled up to a restaurant that looked intimate and elegant without being ostentatious. "How did you get a reservation here?" Janelle asked. "I've heard about this place. People book months in advance." "I know the owner," Brandon said with slight smile. "Benefits of the restaurant business." Inside, they were led to a private corner table, secluded enough for conversation, but not so isolated as to feel inappropriate. The lighting was soft, the atmosphere warm. Brandon held her chair, waited until she was settled before taking his own seat. "This is beautiful," Janelle said, looking around. "But Brandon, this feels like a date." "Is that a problem?" She met his eyes. "I don't know. Is it a date?" He leaned forward, his gaze intense. "I want it to be. But I also don't want to pressure you. You're dealing with a lot right now. Pregnancy, Derek's abandonment, financial stress. The last thing you need is some guy complicating your life." "Some guy," she repeated. "You mean a billionaire who paid my medical bills and got me a job?" "I mean me. Brandon, just a man who can't stop thinking about a woman he met at her lowest moment and wants to know her at her highest." The waiter appeared, mercifully breaking the tension. They ordered, Brandon insisting she get whatever she wanted, not to worry about prices. She chose the salmon, he got steak, and they both requested water. When they were alone again, Brandon said, "Tell me about yourself. Not the crisis version, the real version. Who is Janelle Kendrick when life isn't falling apart?" So she told him. About growing up with just her mother, Nessa, who'd worked as a nurse and sacrificed everything to give Janelle opportunities. About discovering graphic design in high school, how she loved the intersection of art and communication. About her dreams of starting her own firm, helping small businesses tell their stories through branding. "I had plans," she said, her hand unconsciously moving to her belly. "Save money, build a portfolio, launch my business by 30. Then Isaiah happened and everything changed. Change doesn't mean ended, Brandon pointed out, just adjusted. That's a generous way of putting it. It's the truth. You're still talented, still determined. You just have a different timeline now, and a very important partner. She smiled, rubbing her belly where Isaiah was active again. He is pretty important. Most important thing I've ever done, actually. Tell me about him. What's he like in there? Janelle found herself opening up in ways she hadn't expected, describing Isaiah's movements, his patterns, how he seemed to respond to her voice and to music. Brandon listened with complete attention, asking questions, genuinely interested. Then it was her turn. What about you? What does a billionaire do when he's not rescuing pregnant women? He laughed, a real sound that transformed his face. I run a company, make deals, attend tedious meetings, try to remember why I built this empire in the first place. And why did you? His expression grew serious. Honestly. Initially for my mother. To prove her sacrifices weren't wasted. To give her the life she deserved. He paused. After she died, I kept building because I didn't know what else to do. Work became everything. And somewhere along the way, I looked up and realized I'd built this massive empire and had no one to share it with. No one? What about relationships? There have been women. His jaw tightened. But when you have money like I do, it's hard to know who wants you versus who wants your resources. I learned to be cautious. Maybe too cautious. Lonely, Janelle said softly, understanding. Yes, lonely. He met her eyes. Until I walked into that restaurant and saw you. Brandon, I know it's fast, I know it's crazy, but Janelle, I haven't felt this alive, this present, in years. You make me remember why I built all this, not for the money or power, but for moments like this, real connection with someone real. Their food arrived, and they ate slowly, conversation flowing easily now. Brandon asked about her mother, her friendship with Katie, her favorite designs she'd created. She asked about his brother Daniel, his company, his surprisingly eclectic taste in books. By the time dessert came, chocolate torte they shared, Janelle realized hours had passed without her noticing. She couldn't remember the last time she'd felt this comfortable with someone, this seen. I should get you home, Brandon said reluctantly as they finished their coffee. It's getting late and you need rest. In the car, Janelle found herself not wanting the evening to end. When they pulled up outside her building, she turned to him. Thank you, for tonight, for listening, for seeing me as more than just a pregnant woman in crisis. Thank you for giving me a chance. He came around to help her out, and they stood together on the sidewalk, city sounds muted around them. Brandon? She looked up at him. This was a date, wasn't it? His smile was slow, warm, devastating. Yes, this was definitely a date. Good. Because I'd like to do it again. The hope that blazed across his face made him look younger, less guarded. Tomorrow? She laughed. Maybe give me a day to recover, but soon. He walked her to her door, his hand at her back in that way that was becoming familiar, comforting. At her apartment, she turned to say goodnight and found him closer than she'd realized. Janelle, he said quietly, can I kiss you? Her breath caught. Every practical reason she should say no warred with the overwhelming desire to say yes. She was pregnant with another man's baby. This was too fast, too complicated, too impossible. But when she looked in his eyes, she saw the same longing she felt, the same recognition, the same terrifying hope. Yes, she whispered. He cupped her face with both hands, gentle and reverent, giving her every chance to change her mind. Then he lowered his head and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, testing. But when she leaned into him, her hands finding his chest, feeling the steady thrum of his pulse beneath her palms, it deepened. His mouth moved against hers with increasing intensity, tasting, exploring, claiming. She felt herself melting into him, her pregnant body fitting against his solid strength in ways that shouldn't work, but absolutely did. His hands slid from her face into her hair, tilting her head to deepen the kiss further. She made a small sound, need and surrender combined, and felt him groan in response. Isaiah kicked between them, and they broke apart, breathing hard. Brandon rested his forehead against hers, his hands now framing her face again. "That was," he started. "Yeah," she agreed breathlessly. He pulled back just enough to look at her, and what she saw in his eyes made her heart stumble. Desire, yes, but also tenderness. Wonder, like she was something precious he'd discovered and couldn't quite believe was real. "I should let you get inside," he said, though he made no move to leave. "You should," she agreed, not moving either. They stood like that for another moment, unwilling to break the spell. Finally, Janelle stepped back, her hand trailing down his arm until just their fingers linked. "Good night, Brandon." "Good night, Janelle." He lifted her hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to her knuckles. "Dream of me." "Presumptuous," she said, but she was smiling. "Hopeful," he corrected, and walked away. Inside her apartment, Janelle leaned against the closed door, one hand on her racing pulse, the other on her belly. Isaiah was doing somersaults, as if he'd felt the kiss, too. "Oh, Isaiah," she whispered. "I think we might be in trouble, the best kind of trouble." Her phone buzzed, a text from Brandon. "Thank you for tonight. You're extraordinary." She texted back, "Thank you for seeing it. Sleep well." His response came immediately. Not a chance, too busy replaying that kiss. She fell asleep with a smile on her face, and Brandon's good-night text open on her phone, feeling something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Chapter 3. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of increasingly frequent dates, late-night phone calls, and the kind of intimacy that had nothing to do with physical touch and everything to do with truly being known. Brandon showed up at her apartment with lunch when she was working on the Meridian project. He sat quietly in her tiny living room, reading contracts on his tablet while she designed, his presence comforting without being intrusive. When she got frustrated with a logo design, he looked over her shoulder and made a surprisingly insightful suggestion about negative space. She stared at him. "What?" "I built a tech company. Design matters." "That's actually brilliant," she admitted, making the adjustment. It was exactly what the piece needed. He took her to a private art gallery showing, introducing her to the artist, a woman whose work Janelle had admired for years. They talked for an hour about color theory and emotional resonance, while Brandon watched with evident satisfaction. You arranged this," Janelle accused him afterward. "I may have mentioned to the gallery owner that a talented designer was interested in meeting." "The artist?" His smile was unrepentant. "Is that so terrible?" "It's manipulative. It's thoughtful. There's a difference." She punched his arm lightly, but she was smiling. They fell into a rhythm. Dinner twice a week at quiet restaurants where they could talk for hours. Morning coffee runs where Brandon picked her up and drove her to the best cafe in the city, learning she liked her latte with extra foam and a sprinkle of cinnamon. Video calls when he traveled for business, his face on her screen while she worked, like having him present even when he was across the country. And slowly, carefully, Janelle let her walls crumble. She introduced him to her mother, Nessa, in week 2. Nessa had arrived at Janelle's apartment with suspicion and protective fire in her eyes, ready to interrogate this billionaire who'd inserted himself into her daughter's life. Brandon won her over in 15 minutes by asking about her work as a nurse, listening with genuine interest to her stories, and producing photographs of his own mother. She was a nurse too, night shift at County General for 20 years. Nessa's expression softened. By the time she left, she pulled Janelle aside and whispered, "That man looks at you like you hung the moon, and baby, he looks at your belly the same way. Don't let fear chase away something good." Brandon met Katie over dinner at Janelle's apartment, casual pizza night that felt domestic and perfect. Katie interrogated him mercilessly about his intentions, his expectations, his views on parenthood and commitment. Brandon answered every question with patience and honesty. "I know this is unconventional," he told Katie. "I know the timing is complicated, but I care about Janelle, deeply, and I already care about Isaiah. I'm not going anywhere." Katie studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Later, in the kitchen, she told Janelle, "He means it. I can tell. That man is head over heels for you, and he doesn't even fully realize it yet." They were building something real, something that felt like it could last. But underlying the growing intimacy was constant awareness, physical and emotional, that they were both trying to navigate carefully. Every touch lingered. Every goodbye kiss lasted a little longer. The restraint was becoming harder to maintain. 8 months pregnant now, Janelle felt enormous and ungainly. She'd caught Brandon looking at her with such intensity that it stole her breath, but she assumed it was concern for her comfort, not desire. Who could desire someone this pregnant? She was about to find out exactly how wrong she was. It happened on a Thursday evening. Brandon had come to her apartment to help assemble a glider chair for the nursery, a gift from him that she'd finally accepted after he'd promised it wasn't charity, but something he wanted to do. They'd been working on it for an hour, Janelle reading instructions while Brandon handled tools with surprising competence. She was sitting on the floor, legs stretched out, belly prominent, directing him like a general commanding troops. "That piece goes here," she said, pointing. "Are you sure? The diagram shows—" "Trust me, I've been staring at this manual for 20 minutes. He made the adjustment, and of course, she was right. The chair came together perfectly. Brandon sat back on his heels, grinning. "You're good at this. I'm detail-oriented. It's what makes me a good designer. It's one of many things that makes you extraordinary." He said it casually, but there was weight behind the words. She tried to stand, failed spectacularly, her center of gravity completely off. "Ugh, I hate this. I can't even get up off the floor like a normal person." Brandon was immediately there, offering his hands. She grasped them, and he pulled her up carefully, but the momentum brought her right against his chest, her belly pressed between them, his arms wrapping around her instinctively to steady her. They froze, suddenly aware of every point of contact, his solid warmth, her soft curves, the way their bodies fit together despite her pregnancy, or maybe because of it. "Sorry," she murmured, starting to pull away. His arms tightened slightly, keeping her close. "Don't be." His voice was rough. "Janelle, I need to tell you something." She looked up, and the intensity in his gray eyes made her pulse skitter. "What?" "I'm trying very hard to be a gentleman, to give you space, to not pressure you while you're dealing with pregnancy and stress and everything else." His jaw clenched. "But it's getting harder. Being near you, touching you, kissing you goodnight, and then leaving. It's killing me." "Brandon, I know the timing is terrible. I know you're 8 months pregnant and exhausted and probably not thinking about—" He stopped, searched her face. "But I need you to know. I want you, Janelle, not despite your pregnancy, not while pretending it doesn't exist, but you, all of you, exactly as you are right now." The confession hung between them, enormous and terrifying and thrilling. Janelle's pulse thundered in her ears. "You want me? Now? Like this? Especially like this." His hand slid to rest on her belly, feeling Isaiah move. "You're creating life. You're strong and beautiful and fierce. How could I not want you?" "I'm huge," she protested weakly. "I can't even paint my own toenails anymore." "You're beautiful." His voice was firm. "Every inch of you, every change your body has gone through to protect and grow Isaiah. It makes you more beautiful to me, not less." She stared at him, searching for deception, finding only raw honesty and unmistakable desire. "I don't know what to do with that," she admitted. "You don't have to do anything." He pressed a kiss to her forehead, gentle and reverent. "I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. I just needed you to know how I feel, that I see you, all of you, and I want you. When you're ready. If you're ever ready." "What if—" She stopped, fear making her voice small. "What if I'm never ready? What if being pregnant and then having a newborn means we can't? Then we wait." He said it with such certainty that she almost believed him. "Janelle, I'm not with you for sex. I'm with you because you make me feel alive for the first time in years. Because talking to you is the best part of my day. Because watching you protect Isaiah with such fierce love makes me want to protect you both the same way." His hand cupped her face. "If all we ever have is this, talking and laughing and being together, that's enough. You're enough." The words broke something open in her chest. Tears spilled over, and she was furious with herself for crying, but she couldn't stop. "Damn pregnancy hormones," she muttered, swiping at her eyes. Brandon pulled her closer, wrapping her in his arms, one hand cradling the back of her head while the other splayed protectively across her belly. She buried her face in his chest and let herself cry. for Derek's cruelty, for her fear and exhaustion, for the impossible kindness of this man who saw her worth when she'd stopped seeing it herself. "I want you too," she admitted against his shirt. "I've wanted you for weeks, but I didn't know if you could possibly." "I do." He pulled back just enough to tilt her face up, his thumbs wiping away her tears. "I absolutely do." Then he kissed her, and this kiss was different from the others. This kiss held intention and promise and barely restrained desire. His mouth moved against hers with increasing intensity, his hands framing her face like she was precious and necessary and everything he'd been looking for. She kissed him back with equal hunger, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him as close as her belly would allow. When he broke away to trail kisses down her jaw to her neck, she gasped, her head falling back to give him better access. "Janelle," he murmured against her skin, "tell me to stop." "Don't you dare," she managed, breathless. His hands slid down her sides, careful and reverent, learning her changed shape. When he reached the swell of her belly, he paused, looking into her eyes for permission. She nodded, and his palms spread across her stomach, feeling Isaiah kick in response. "He's saying hello to you," Janelle said, smiling through tears she hadn't realized were falling again. "Hello, Isaiah," Brandon said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "Your mom is the most amazing woman I've ever met." The sweetness of it, combined with the desire still burning in his eyes, undid her completely. She pulled him down for another kiss, pouring everything she couldn't say into the contact, her fear and hope and growing love and desperate need to be close to him. They stumbled toward her couch, mouths fused, hands exploring. Brandon sat and pulled her carefully onto his lap, mindful of her belly, positioning her so she was comfortable while still being close. They kissed until she was dizzy with it, until her lungs demanded air and her body demanded more. "We should stop," Brandon said, though his hands were sliding under her shirt, finding bare skin. "Why?" She was working on the buttons of his shirt, frustrated by how small they were, how her pregnant fingers felt clumsy. "Because you're 8 months pregnant, and I don't want to hurt you or Isaiah." "You won't." She got his shirt open finally, her hands finding the warm skin of his chest, feeling his muscles tense under her touch. "Brandon, I need this. I need you. Please don't make me wait anymore." He groaned, the sound raw and desperate, and captured her mouth again. This kiss was consuming, all pretense of control dissolving. His hands found the hem of her shirt and pulled it over her head, revealing her maternity bra that she was suddenly self-conscious about. Practical, not sexy, designed for function, not fashion. But Brandon looked at her like she was art. His hands traced her curves with reverence, his eyes dark with want. "Gorgeous," he breathed. "Absolutely gorgeous." She believed him. For the first time in months, she believed she was beautiful. They moved to her bedroom, Brandon insisting on making sure she was comfortable, surrounding her with pillows that supported her belly and back. His care, even in the midst of obvious desire, made her fall a little more in love with him. "Are you sure?" he asked one final time, positioned over her but not touching, giving her every chance to change her mind. "I'm sure." She reached up, pulled him down. "Make love to me, Brandon, please." He did, with a gentleness and care that brought tears to her eyes. Every touch worshipped her, every kiss claimed her. He moved slowly, constantly checking her comfort, adjusting when her belly made positions difficult, his focus entirely on her pleasure. When she came apart in his arms, calling his name, he followed her over the edge with her name on his lips. They lay tangled together afterward, his hand on her belly where Isaiah was doing somersaults, both of them breathless and overwhelmed. "That was," Janelle started. "Perfect," Brandon finished. "You're perfect." She turned in his arms to face him, seeing her own wonder reflected in his eyes. "What are we doing, Brandon?" "Falling in love," he said simply. "At least I am, with you, with Isaiah, with the life we could build together." The words should have terrified her. Instead, they felt like coming home. "I'm falling too," she admitted. "It scares me." "Me too," he kissed her forehead. "But I'd rather be scared with you than empty without you." They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, Isaiah moving between them, 3 bodies that were becoming a family. "Are you Team Brandon? Do you think Janelle should trust him completely, or is she right to still have some doubts? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe if you're as invested in this love story as I am. Over the next 2 weeks, Janelle moved into Brandon's penthouse. It started gradually. An overnight bag when she was too tired to go home, then a few days' worth of clothes, then finally Brandon sitting her down and saying, "Just move in, officially. You're here more than you're at your apartment anyway, and I want you here. Both of you." The penthouse was a revelation, floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic city views, a kitchen that made her tiny apartment kitchenette look like a closet, guest rooms that could house her entire apartment. And the nursery Brandon had prepared for Isaiah, soft grays and whites, expensive furniture, and thoughtful touches that showed he'd researched extensively. Janelle stood in the doorway, one hand on her 9-month belly, staring at the room Brandon had created for her son. "You did all this?" "I wanted him to have everything." Brandon came up behind her, his arms wrapping around her, hands settling on her belly. "I wanted you both to have everything. It's too much. It's not enough." He kissed her temple. "Nothing I give you will ever be enough to match what you've given me." She turned in his arms. "What have I given you?" "A reason," he said simply. "For all of this. For everything I've built. You and Isaiah. You make it mean something." 2 nights later, Janelle woke at 3 a.m. to an unfamiliar sensation. Wetness. Pressure. And then, as she tried to sit up, her first real contraction. "Brandon," she said, her voice surprisingly calm considering the fear suddenly flooding her system. "Brandon, wake up." He was awake instantly, years of light sleeping from business crises making him alert. "What's wrong?" "My water just broke, and I'm having contractions." For a moment he was absolutely still. Then he was moving, all efficient purpose. Okay, we planned for this. Hospital bag? By the door. Doctor's number? In my phone." He was already calling, talking to the on-call OB, explaining Janelle's contractions were 5 minutes apart. Yes, they were coming in now. He dressed while talking, then helped her change into dry clothes, his hands gentle despite the urgency. In the car, Janelle focused on breathing through contractions that were coming faster now, harder. Brandon drove with controlled speed, one hand on the wheel, the other reaching across to hold hers. "You're doing great," he said. "We're almost there." "I'm scared," she admitted between contractions. "I know, me too. But we're doing this together. You, me, and Isaiah. We've got this." At the hospital, everything became a blur of nurses and monitors and increasingly intense contractions. Brandon never left her side. When she wanted to walk, he walked with her. When she needed to lean on something during contractions, he became her anchor. When the pain made her cry, he wiped her tears and whispered encouragement. Hours passed. The pain intensified. Janelle's strength started to waver. "I can't do this," she gasped during a particularly brutal contraction. "It's too much. I can't." Brandon was right there, his face close to hers, his hand gripping hers so tightly she felt bones grinding. "Yes, you can. You're the strongest person I know. You're almost there." "I'm not strong enough." "You are. Look at me." He cupped her face, forcing her to focus on his eyes instead of the pain. "You carried Isaiah for 9 months. You survived Derek's abandonment. You built a life when everything fell apart. You opened your heart when you had every reason to keep it closed. If that's not strength, I don't know what is." Another contraction hit, and Janelle screamed through it, crushing Brandon's hand. When it passed, she was crying, exhausted beyond anything she'd ever experienced. "I love you," Brandon said suddenly, fiercely. "I love you, Janelle Kendrick, and I'm not going anywhere, ever." The words gave her something to hold on to beyond the pain. "I love you too," she managed, "even though you helped get me into this position." He laughed, the sound slightly wild with relief. "Technically, Derek got you into this position." "Don't say his name right now." "Fair point." The doctor checked her progress. "You're ready to push. Let's meet this baby." What followed was the hardest thing Janelle had ever done. Pushing through exhaustion and pain while Brandon supported her, one arm around her back, his other hand in hers, his voice in her ear coaching her through each push. "That's it. You're so close. One more push, love. Just one more." And then, after what felt like forever, and no time at all, a cry split the air. Isaiah's first breath, his first sound, the most beautiful thing Janelle had ever heard. "It's a boy," the doctor announced, which made Janelle laugh through tears because of course it was. She'd known for months. They placed Isaiah on her chest, tiny and perfect and screaming his displeasure at being evicted from his comfortable home. Janelle sobbed, her hands coming around him protectively, checking his fingers and toes, memorizing his face. "Hi, baby," she whispered. "Hi, Isaiah. I'm your mama. I've been waiting so long to meet you." Brandon's arms came around them both, his face pressed close to theirs. She felt his tears mixing with hers as he looked at Isaiah for the first time. This baby who wasn't his biologically but already belonged to him in every way that mattered. "He's perfect," Brandon breathed. "Janelle, he's absolutely perfect." After the nurses cleaned Isaiah and checked him, after they'd assured Janelle he was healthy and strong, they placed him back in her arms. Brandon sat on the edge of her hospital bed, one arm around her shoulders, his other hand touching Isaiah's tiny fist with reverent awe. Isaiah's fingers wrapped around Brandon's finger, and something passed across Brandon's face, wonder and love and fierce protectiveness all at once. "Hello, Isaiah," Brandon said softly. "I'm Brandon. I know I'm not your biological father, but if you'll let me, I'd like to be your dad. I promise to protect you and your mama with everything I have. I promise to teach you to be kind and strong. I promise to show you that family isn't just blood, it's choice. It's love. It's showing up every day and meaning it." Janelle was crying again, happy tears this time. She looked at Brandon, at this man who'd entered her life during her darkest moment and brought light with him, and knew with absolute certainty that this was exactly where they were meant to be. "He accepts your application," Janelle said, smiling through tears. "The position of dad is officially filled." Brandon kissed her softly, carefully, then pressed an equally gentle kiss to Isaiah's forehead. "Thank you," he whispered. "For him. For this. For us." The next 2 days in the hospital passed in a blur of feeding and diaper changes and learning how to care for a newborn. Brandon never left except to shower and change at home, bringing back fresh clothes for Janelle each time. Nessa visited, holding her grandson with tears streaming down her face, telling him about his grandmother who'd waited so long to meet him. Katie came with balloons and completely impractical baby gifts and fierce declarations that Isaiah was already the smartest, most handsome baby ever born. Daniel, Brandon's brother, showed up with a massive teddy bear and surprised emotion in his eyes. "I'm Uncle Daniel," he told Isaiah solemnly, "and I take the job very seriously. Just so you know, I'm the fun uncle. Brandon's the boring, responsible one." "Hey," Brandon protested, but he was smiling. Alex Novak appeared with a college savings fund already established in Isaiah's name, because of course he did. "Welcome to the family, kid. You're going to do great things, I can tell." But the most profound moment came late on the second night. Janelle woke to find Brandon standing over Isaiah's hospital bassinet, just watching him sleep. She observed quietly, seeing the love and wonder on Brandon's face as he studied their son. "Can't sleep?" she asked softly. Brandon looked over, smiled. "Don't want to. Don't want to miss a moment of him. He's going to do this a lot. The sleeping thing, I mean, hopefully." "I know." Brandon came to sit on her bed, taking her hand. "Janelle, I need to ask you something." Her heart jumped. "Okay." "I want to adopt Isaiah, legally. I want to be his father in every way, not just the ways that matter, but the ways that are official and documented. I want him to have my name if you'll allow it. I want to be listed on his birth certificate. I want the world to know he's mine." Janelle felt tears gathering again. "Brandon, I know it's fast. I know we haven't been together long, but I've never been more certain of anything. I love you. I love Isaiah. I want us to be a family, legally, officially, permanently." "Yes." The word came out without hesitation. "Yes, you can. Adopt him. Yes, he can have your name. Yes to all of it." Brandon's smile was radiant. He kissed her deeply, pouring gratitude and love and promise into the contact. When he pulled back, his eyes were shining. "There's something else," he said. "Something I've been carrying around for a week, waiting for the right moment." He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, and Janelle's breath stopped. "This isn't how I planned to do this," Brandon admitted. "I had this whole romantic setup planned. Restaurant, flowers, probably too much champagne which you couldn't drink anyway. But sitting here, with you, with Isaiah sleeping 10 feet away, this feels like the right moment." He opened the box, revealing a ring that made Janelle gasp, a single perfect diamond flanked by 2 smaller stones, elegant and timeless and absolutely perfect. 3 stones, Brandon explained. "You, me, and Isaiah. Family. Because that's what we are, Janelle. That's what I want us to be officially." He took her hand, his eyes never leaving hers. "Janelle Kendrick, you walked into my life during a crisis and turned it into a gift. You showed me what I was missing, what I'd been working toward without knowing it. You made me a better man, and now you've made me a father. Will you make me your husband? Will you marry me?" The proposal was everything, romantic and practical and perfect for them. Janelle looked at the ring, at Brandon's hopeful face, at Isaiah sleeping peacefully nearby, and felt her heart expand with so much love she didn't know how it fit inside her chest. "Yes," she said, laughing through tears. "Yes, I'll marry you. 1,000 times, yes." Brandon slipped the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly, of course it did, and kissed her with such tenderness it made her cry harder. When they broke apart, both smiling so wide their faces hurt, Isaiah chose that moment to wake with a demanding cry. "Perfect timing, buddy," Brandon said, going to lift him from the bassinet. "Your mom just agreed to marry me. We're going to be a family. Officially." He brought Isaiah to the bed, settling beside Janelle with their son between them. They sat like that, the 3 of them together, Isaiah calming in the presence of his parents, and Janelle thought about the journey that had brought them here. Derek's cruelty had felt like an ending, but it had been a beginning, a clearing away of something that didn't serve her to make room for something real. "What are you thinking?" Brandon asked, watching her face. "That I'm glad," she said, "that Derek showed his true colors, that he walked away. Because if he hadn't, I never would have been in that restaurant. You never would have seen me. And we wouldn't be here." "Funny how that works," Brandon agreed. "The worst night of your life led to this." "The best night," Janelle corrected, looking at Isaiah, at Brandon, at her ring catching the light. "All of this. The absolute best." They took Isaiah home 3 days later, and Brandon insisted on carrying both the baby and Janelle's bags, refusing to let her do anything except walk and concentrate on recovering. At the penthouse, someone had decorated. Welcome home balloons, flowers, and a fully stocked kitchen, courtesy of Nessa and Katie. But the best surprise was the new family photo frame on the mantel, still empty, waiting to be filled. "Our first family photo," Brandon said, following her gaze. "We'll take it tomorrow, all 3 of us." That night, after Isaiah's final feeding, after they'd both collapsed into bed exhausted but happy, Janelle lay in Brandon's arms and felt peace settle over her like a blanket. "Thank you," she whispered into the darkness. "For what?" "For seeing me. For staying. For loving us." His arms tightened around her. "Thank you for letting me. For taking a chance on a stranger who couldn't walk away even if he'd wanted to. Did you want to?" "Not for a single second." He kissed the top of her head. "From the moment I saw you in that restaurant, I knew my life had changed. I just didn't know how much, how completely, how perfectly." They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, Isaiah sleeping soundly in his bassinet nearby. A family born from crisis, built on trust, and strengthened by love that had nothing to do with biology and everything to do with choice. 6 weeks after Isaiah's birth, Janelle got medical clearance from her doctor. Brandon had been patient, careful, respectful of her healing body. But the tension between them had been building, the desire that had only been banked, not extinguished. That evening, Nessa took Isaiah for the night, her first overnight as a grandmother, which she'd been requesting for weeks. The apartment suddenly felt very empty and very full of possibility. Janelle found Brandon in his home office, reviewing contracts. She stood in the doorway watching him work, this man who'd become everything to her. "Isaiah's gone," she said. Brandon looked up and something heated flared in his eyes. "Gone? Overnight with my mother. We're alone, completely alone." He set down his papers with careful precision. "And," She walked toward him, her body mostly healed now, her confidence returning. And I've been cleared by my doctor. For everything. Brandon stood, moving around his desk to meet her. Everything? Everything. She stopped inches from him, looking up into his face. I want you, Brandon. I've wanted you for weeks. I'm tired of waiting. His hands came up to frame her face, his touch gentle despite the desire burning in his eyes. Are you sure? We don't have to rush. I'm sure, she kissed him, pouring 6 weeks of pent-up longing into the contact. Make love to me. Not carefully. Not like I might break. Just love me. He groaned, a sound of surrender and desire combined, and kissed her back with intensity that made her knees weak. His hands were everywhere, her hair, her face, sliding down to her waist and pulling her against him. They made it to the bedroom, shedding clothes along the way. Brandon kept pausing to ask if she was okay, if anything hurt, if she needed him to stop. Each time she pulled him closer and demanded more. When they finally came together, it was perfect. Passion and tenderness combined, need and love intertwined. He worshipped her post-pregnancy body with hands and mouth, showing her she was beautiful, she was desired, she was everything he wanted. Afterward, tangled in sheets, both breathing hard and satisfied, Janelle traced patterns on his chest and felt complete. I love you, she said. I know I've said it before, but I need you to know how much. You saved me, Brandon. No, he tilted her face up to his. You saved yourself. I just had the privilege of watching you do it, and then the even greater privilege of being chosen by you. We chose each other, she corrected. We did. He kissed her softly. Best decision I ever made. The wedding was 3 months later. Small ceremony on a beach at sunset with their closest people present. Nessa walked Janelle down the aisle while Daniel held Isaiah, who was dressed in a tiny tuxedo that made everyone cry-laugh. Janelle wore ivory, simple and elegant, with Isaiah's birthstone on a necklace Brandon had given her that morning. Brandon wore a tailored suit and couldn't stop smiling. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, Derek's voice cut through the peaceful moment. I object. Janelle turned, shock and fury warring in her chest. Derek stood at the back of the gathering, Amber beside him, both looking smug and entitled. You can't do this, Derek said, walking forward. That's my son. You can't just give him to someone else. Brandon moved in front of Janelle instinctively, protective. You have no rights here. I have parental rights. I'm his biological father. You're a sperm donor, Katie yelled. You abandoned them. I changed my mind. Derek pulled papers from his jacket. I'm filing for custody, full custody, and for child support from you, he said, pointing at Janelle, since you clearly have access to money now. The moment hung there, ugly and intrusive. Then Brandon spoke, his voice cold and absolutely certain. You have no power here. None. You signed away your parental rights 6 weeks ago. Derek's smug expression faltered. What? My lawyers contacted you, offered you $50,000 to sign away all parental rights to Isaiah. You signed, happily, without reading the paperwork thoroughly, apparently, because you missed the part where it was legally binding and irrevocable. You can't, it's legal, it's done. You have no claim to Isaiah, none. And if you try to fight it, my legal team will bury you in motions and appeals that will cost you everything you have and more. Derek's face went white. You tricked me. I offered you money, which you accepted, to stay away from my family. You made your choice. Live with it. Security, discreet but effective, appeared at Brandon's subtle signal, escorting Derek and Amber away. The gathering was silent, shocked. Chapter 4. Janelle turned to Brandon, understanding dawning. You did this? When? 6 weeks ago, right after Isaiah was born. I had my lawyers draw up the paperwork, made him an offer I knew he couldn't refuse. Brandon's expression was unapologetic. I wasn't going to let him threaten our family. Ever. She should probably be angry that he'd handled it without telling her. Should feel like he'd overstepped again. But all she felt was relief and love for this man who protected them so completely. Thank you, she whispered. Brandon cupped her face, kissed her softly. Always. I'll always protect you both. The officiant cleared his throat. Shall we continue? They did. And when Brandon promised to love, honor, and cherish her and Isaiah for all his days, Janelle believed him with every fiber of her being. When she promised the same, she meant it with her whole heart. I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Brandon pulled Janelle into his arms and kissed her deeply, thoroughly, in front of everyone they loved. When they broke apart, Isaiah chose that moment to let out a demanding cry, making everyone laugh. He wants to be part of it too, Daniel said, bringing Isaiah to them. Brandon took his son, holding him with one arm while his other stayed around Janelle. What do you think, Isaiah? Did we do it right? Isaiah cooed in response, and the photographer captured it, the three of them together, family complete, love written across every face. At the reception, Brandon stood to give a speech. I'm not good with crowds or public displays, most of you know that, but today I need to say something publicly, because these two people deserve to have the world know how much they mean to me. He looked at Janelle, at Isaiah in her arms. 6 months ago, I was successful, wealthy, and completely empty. I'd built an empire, but forgotten why. Then I saw a woman being humiliated in a restaurant, and something in me woke up. Something that recognized her strength, her fire, her absolute refusal to be diminished. His voice grew rough with emotion. Janelle, you didn't need me to save you. You were already saving yourself. But you let me be part of it. You let me see your vulnerability along with your strength. You trusted me with your heart when you had every reason not to. And you gave me the greatest gift I could ever receive. You made me a father to Isaiah. He crossed to them, kissed Janelle's forehead, then Isaiah's. I know people probably think this happened too fast, that a billionaire adopting a pregnant woman and her baby sounds like a movie plot. But this is real. You two are the most real thing in my life, and I promise to spend every day proving I deserve you both. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Later, during their first dance, Janelle looked up at Brandon. You know, Derek was right about one thing. What's that? This is like a movie. Billionaire rescues pregnant woman, falls in love, adopts her baby. It's almost too perfect to be real. Except I didn't rescue you. You rescued me. He pulled her closer, mindful of where she held Isaiah between them. And this isn't a movie. It's our life. Messy, complicated, and absolutely perfect. What happens in the sequel? She teased. More babies if you want them. Growing old together, watching Isaiah grow up, building a life where love is the foundation and everything else is just details. He kissed her softly. Happily ever after, Janelle. The real kind, where we choose each other every day. I like that sequel, she whispered against his lips. Let's make it happen. They danced surrounded by family and friends, with Isaiah sleeping peacefully between them, and Janelle thought about the journey that had brought them here, about how the worst night of her life had led to the best days, about how love, real love, didn't rescue you from difficulties, but walked through them beside you. 1 year after the wedding, Janelle stood in her new office, not a corner of Brandon's penthouse, but actual office space for her design firm that was thriving beyond her wildest dreams. The Meridian project had led to others, her reputation building through word of mouth and exceptional work. Brandon leaned in the doorway, watching her organize fabric swatches, a familiar smile on his face. You look happy. I am happy. She crossed to him, wrapped her arms around his waist. I have a business I love, a husband who supports me completely, and the most beautiful son in the world. Biased, but I agree. He kissed the top of her head. Speaking of Isaiah, your mother just texted. She's got him at the park and wants to know if she can keep him overnight again. That's the 3rd time this month. I think my mother loves being a grandmother more than she loved being a mother. So that's a yes? Janelle looked up at him, seeing the heat beginning to kindle in his eyes. That's a yes. What did you have in mind? Thought we could have a quiet dinner at home, just the two of us. Maybe recreate our first date. Maybe see where the evening takes us. I like how you think, Mr. Hammond. I like how you say my name, Mrs. Hammond. He kissed her deeply, thoroughly, in a way that promised the evening would take them exactly where they both wanted to go. That night, After dinner and lovemaking and lying tangled together in satisfied exhaustion, Brandon's phone rang. He groaned, reaching for it. Hammond. His expression changed. When? How long ago? He was already moving, grabbing clothes. I'll be there in 20 minutes. What's wrong? Janelle sat up, concerned. There's a situation at one of the facilities. Equipment malfunction, potential injuries. I need to go handle it. Go. Do what you need to do. I'll be here when you get back. He kissed her hard. I love you. This is why I do it, you know. The business, the empire, all of it. To provide for you and Isaiah, to build something that matters. I know. Now go. Be the brilliant CEO everyone needs. He left, and Janelle lay back in bed, one hand on her stomach where a new secret was growing. She hadn't told Brandon yet, wanted to wait until she was further along, until she was sure. But she was pretty certain she knew what the test would say. Their family was growing, and this time there would be no doubt, no complications, just love. 6 weeks later, she told him. They were at dinner, Isaiah in his high chair making a mess of his food, when Janelle slid a small wrapped box across the table to Brandon. What's this? He looked confused. It's not my birthday. Open it. Inside was a tiny Hammond Industries onesie, newborn size. Brandon stared at it for a long moment, then looked at her with dawning understanding. You're pregnant? 10 weeks. I wanted to be sure before I told you. Is this okay? He was around the table in an instant, pulling her into his arms, kissing her with joy and wonder. Okay, Janelle, it's perfect. You're perfect. This is... His voice broke with emotion. Another baby. Our baby. You're not worried? About timing or money or... I'm not worried about anything. He knelt beside her chair, his hands on her still flat belly. We've got this. Together. Always together. Isaiah banged his sippy cup on his tray, demanding attention. They laughed, including him in the hug, and Janelle felt her heart so full it could burst. This was what Derek had called a trap, a mistake, a ruined life. But he'd been so wrong. This was gift, purpose, joy. This was family. 8 months later, Janelle gave birth to a daughter they named Diane, after Brandon's mother. This time, the birth was easier, faster, and Brandon was still right there, coaching her through it, holding her hand, cutting the cord when their daughter arrived screaming and perfect. Isaiah, now 2 years old, met his sister with solemn curiosity, gently touching her tiny hand while Brandon held them both, and Janelle watched her family grow. What do you think, buddy? Brandon asked Isaiah. She's your sister. Your job is to protect her and teach her things and be her best friend. Baby, Isaiah pronounced carefully, one of his few clear words. My baby. That's right, your baby sister. Janelle watched them, her husband holding their daughter, their son leaning against his father's leg, and thought about the journey that had brought them here. 2 years ago, she'd been humiliated in a restaurant, pregnant and alone, convinced her life was over. Now she had a husband who adored her, a thriving business, 2 beautiful children, and a family that was built on love and choice rather than obligation. What are you thinking? Brandon asked, noticing her expression. That I'm grateful, she said, honestly. For Derek's cruelty, as strange as that sounds, because it led me to you, to this, to everything that matters. I'm grateful too. He shifted Diane to one arm and extended his other to Janelle, pulling her close so all 4 of them were together. For that night in the restaurant, for your strength, for your willingness to take a chance on a stranger, for building this life with me. Best decision I ever made, Janelle whispered. Second best, Brandon corrected. First was deciding to stand up in that restaurant. Everything else followed from that. 5 years after that fateful night, the Hammond family had settled into a beautiful rhythm. Isaiah was 6, smart and kind with his father's gray eyes and his mother's artistic sensibility. Diane was 3, full of personality and already showing signs of Brandon's business mind despite her age. Janelle's design firm had expanded to include 3 employees and a client roster that was the envy of her competitors. She'd been featured in design magazines, won awards, built exactly the career she'd dreamed of. Brandon had shifted his business priorities, working from home more, turning down projects that would take him away from family. Hammond Industries was thriving, but it was no longer his sole focus. His family was. They'd started a foundation together, helping single parents with childcare grants, business microloans, housing assistance. Every month they heard stories of lives transformed by timely help, and Janelle thought about how she'd once been in that position, desperate and alone. One evening, after the kids were in bed, Janelle found Brandon in Isaiah's room, watching their son sleep. She slipped her arms around his waist from behind, resting her cheek against his back. "What are you thinking about?" she asked softly. "About that night, the restaurant. How close I came to minding my own business and walking away. But you didn't." "But I didn't." He turned in her arms, pulling her close. "Best decision of my life. You know, when I built this empire, I thought I was doing it for my mother, to prove her sacrifices meant something. But really, I was building it for you, for Isaiah and Diane, for this family I didn't even know I was missing." "We were missing you too," Janelle said. "We just didn't know it yet." He kissed her, and after 15 years together, it still felt like the first time, electric and perfect and right. "Want to know a secret?" Janelle whispered against his lips. "Always." "I'm pregnant again." Brandon pulled back, eyes wide with shock and joy. "Again?" "Again. Surprise." She laughed at his expression. "Apparently we're very good at this." He lifted her off her feet, spinning her around before remembering she was pregnant and carefully setting her down. "How far along?" 8 weeks. I just found out yesterday. Are you happy?" Happy doesn't begin to cover it. He dropped to his knees, pressing his face to her still flat belly. "Hello in there. This is Dad. I'm going to embarrass you with how much I love you, so brace yourself." Janelle laughed, threading her fingers through his hair. "You're ridiculous. I'm happy. There's a difference." Isaiah appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleepy eyes. "Daddy? Mama? Why you on the floor?" Brandon stood, scooping up his son. "Because we're going to have another baby. You're going to be a big brother again." Isaiah's eyes went wide. "Really? Really? Can it be a brother this time? Sisters are loud." They laughed, the three of them together, soon to be 5. And Janelle thought about how far they'd come from that restaurant, from that moment of crisis that had changed everything. Life wasn't perfect. They had challenges, juggling careers and children, managing extended family, navigating the complications that came with wealth and public attention. But they faced everything together, unified by love and commitment and the choice they made every day to be family. The third baby, a boy they named Daniel after Brandon's brother, arrived 7 months later. The delivery was smooth, and this time Isaiah and Diane were there within hours of his birth, meeting their baby brother with wonder and excitement. "He's so tiny," Diane whispered, touching Daniel's hand with one careful finger. "You were that tiny once," Janelle told her. "Hard to believe, right?" "I'm going to teach him everything," Isaiah declared seriously, "like how to tie shoes and count to 100 and which cartoons are good." "That's a lot of responsibility," Brandon said, fighting a smile. "Think you can handle it?" "I'm 6. I can handle anything." That confidence, that security in being loved and supported, that was what Janelle and Brandon had built together, not through money or grand gestures, but through showing up every day, choosing each other and their children consistently, building a foundation of trust and love that nothing could shake. 10 years after that night in the restaurant, Janelle stood beside Brandon at a charity gala for their foundation. She wore designer dress that made her feel beautiful, jewelry that had been anniversary gifts, and most importantly, her husband's ring on her finger. Across the ballroom, she spotted a familiar face. Derek. Older now, lines around his eyes, looking diminished in a way that had nothing to do with his clothes or status and everything to do with the emptiness she recognized. He saw her too. For a moment their eyes met across the crowded room. Then Amber appeared at his side, still together apparently, and steered him away. Brandon's hand found Janelle's back, that familiar protective gesture. "You okay?" "I'm perfect." And she meant it. She looked at Derek and felt nothing. No anger, no pain, not even pity. Just profound gratitude that he'd shown his true colors when he did, clearing the path for someone who actually deserved her. "Want to dance?" Brandon asked. "Always. On the wiki dance floor, surrounded by people who'd come to support their cause, Janelle looked up at her husband. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't intervened that night? Every day, he admitted, and every day I'm grateful I did. You saved me, Janelle, from a life that looked successful but felt empty. You gave me purpose, family, love, everything that actually matters. We saved each other, she corrected. That's how the best love stories work. Is that what we are? A love story? The best kind, the real kind, where we choose each other every single day and mean it. He pulled her closer, and they danced as the music swelled around them. Later that night, they'd go home to their 3 sleeping children and their beautiful life. They'd probably argue about whose turn it was to pack school lunches. They'd definitely steal kisses in the kitchen while making breakfast. They'd be tired and busy and completely happy. Because this was real life. Not a fairy tale where problems disappeared with true love's kiss, but something better. A partnership built on trust, strengthened by adversity, and sustained by the daily choice to love each other well. As the gala ended and they prepared to leave, a young woman approached them nervously. She was visibly pregnant, probably 6 months along, and carried herself with the particular weariness Janelle remembered well. Mrs. Hammond, I'm sorry to bother you, but I wanted to thank you. Your foundation's grant helped me leave an abusive relationship and start over. I'm going to be a single mom, and I was terrified. But your program gave me housing assistance and business training, and now I have hope. So thank you for seeing people like me, for helping. Janelle took the woman's hand. What's your name? Sarah. Sarah, you're going to be an amazing mother, and you're not alone. You have a whole community supporting you. Don't forget that. As Sarah walked away, Janelle felt Brandon's arms come around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. You did that, he said quietly. You created something that helps people the way I wish someone had helped my mother, the way I helped you. We did that, she corrected. Together. Together, he agreed. Always together. They left the gala hand in hand, and on the drive home, Brandon reached over to take her hand, threading their fingers together in the way that had become second nature. I love you, he said, eyes on the road, in case I haven't mentioned it today. You've mentioned it 3 times, actually, but I never get tired of hearing it. Good, because I never get tired of saying it. I love you, Janelle Hammond. I loved you the moment I saw you protecting your belly in that restaurant. I love you more now than I did yesterday, and I'll love you more tomorrow than I do today. That's mathematically impossible, she teased. Eventually you'll run out of room to love me more. Watch me. He pulled into their driveway, turned off the car, and faced her in the darkness. I'll spend the rest of my life proving you wrong, proving that love doesn't run out of room. It expands to hold everything that matters. Inside their home, they checked on their sleeping children, Isaiah dreaming with a book still in his hand, Diane curled around her favorite stuffed animal, Daniel with his thumb in his mouth. 3 miracles, 3 blessings, 3 reasons their lives had meaning. In their bedroom, Brandon pulled Janelle into his arms. Tell me again about that night, about what you were thinking when I approached your table. You want to hear this again? I never get tired of hearing it. Janelle settled against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady beneath her cheek. I was thinking my life was over, that I'd made terrible choices and would pay for them forever, that I'd be alone, struggling, judged. And then this stranger with kind eyes extended his hand, and something in me recognized you, like my soul knew yours before my brain caught up. She tilted her head to look at him. I was terrified to take your hand, but more terrified not to. Best risk you ever took. Second best, she corrected, echoing his words from years ago. First was deciding to keep Isaiah despite everything. Everything else followed from that. He kissed her then, deeply and thoroughly, and when they made love that night, it held all the passion of their first time, combined with the deep knowledge that came from years of choosing each other daily. Afterward, tangled in sheets in each other, Janelle traced patterns on his chest and spoke the truth she'd carried for 10 years. You know what the real miracle was? Not that you helped me. Not even that you fell in love with me. The real miracle was that you made me believe I deserved to be loved. That being pregnant and struggling and scared didn't make me less worthy. You saw value in me when I couldn't see it in myself. That's what changed everything." Brandon's arms tightened around her. "You always had value, Janelle. I just had the privilege of recognizing it, of being the one you let close enough to show you what I saw. Do you ever regret it? Taking on a pregnant woman and all the complications that came with?" "Never. Not once. Not for a single second." He shifted so he could look directly into her eyes. "My only regret is that I didn't find you sooner, that you had to face Derek's cruelty alone, even for a moment. But everything else? Isaiah, our family, this life? I'd relive every challenging moment to get here." Janelle felt tears prick her eyes. Happy tears, grateful tears. "I love you so much it scares me sometimes. Like this much happiness can't possibly last." "It will last," he promised, "because we built it on truth and choice and showing up even when it's hard. That kind of love doesn't disappear, Janelle. It only grows stronger." She believed him, after 10 years of him proving it every day. How could she not? The final chapter of their story came 15 years after that fateful restaurant night. Isaiah was 19, home from college for the summer. Diane was 16, already showing signs of becoming a force of nature in business like her father. Daniel was 13, all lanky limbs and emerging personality. Brandon was 57 now, silver, having fully claimed his dark hair, lines around his eyes from years of smiling. Janelle was 41, still beautiful, still fierce, still the woman who'd captured his heart in her darkest moment. They were having Sunday dinner, a tradition they'd maintained despite busy schedules, when Isaiah cleared his throat nervously. "So, I have something to tell everyone." All eyes turned to him. Brandon and Janelle exchanged glances, the silent communication of parents who'd learned to read their children. "I have a girlfriend. Her name is Rebecca. She's amazing, smart, funny, studying environmental science. We've been together for 6 months. He paused, taking a deep breath. "She's pregnant. We're going to have a baby." The table went silent. Diane's eyes went wide. Daniel looked confused. Brandon's expression was carefully neutral. Janelle's heart clenched, not with judgment, but with understanding of how terrifying this moment was for her son. "I know it's not ideal timing," Isaiah rushed on. "I'm only 19, she's 20, we're still in school. But we love each other, and we want this baby. We're going to make it work somehow. I wanted you to know, to hopefully have your support." Janelle stood, walked around the table, and pulled her son into a fierce hug. "Of course you have our support. Always." Isaiah sagged with relief against her. "You're not disappointed?" "Disappointed? Baby, no. Concerned about logistics? Yes. Wanting to help you figure this out? Absolutely. But disappointed in you? Never." Brandon stood too, joining the embrace. "Your mom's right. This isn't the path we'd have chosen for you, but it's your path, your life, and we're going to support you and Rebecca through every step." "Really?" Isaiah looked between them, hope and fear warring on his young face. "Even though I'm so young? Even though it's going to be hard?" "Especially because it's going to be hard," Brandon said firmly. "That's when family matters most, when things are difficult and scary and uncertain." Janelle pulled back to look at her son, her first baby, the child who'd brought Brandon into her life, now about to become a father himself. "When can we meet Rebecca?" "She's actually outside, in the car. She was too nervous to come in." Isaiah looked sheepish. "She knows my story, about how you were pregnant when you met Dad. She was afraid you'd judge her." "Go get her," Janelle said immediately. "Right now. Bring her in." When Isaiah returned with Rebecca, a petite young woman with anxious eyes and protective hands on her barely showing belly, Janelle recognized the fear and determination she'd once carried. "Rebecca," Janelle took the girl's hands. "Thank you for coming. I know this is scary." "I'm so sorry," Rebecca burst out. "I know this isn't what you wanted for Isaiah. I know we messed up." "Stop." Janelle's voice was gentle but firm. "You didn't mess up. You created life. That's never a mistake. Is the timing complicated? Yes. Will it be hard? Absolutely. But you're not alone. You have Isaiah and you have us. All of us." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. "Isaiah told me how his biological father treated you, how he abandoned you. I was so afraid." "That's not going to happen," Isaiah said, wrapping his arm around her. I'm not Derek. I'm staying. I'm going to be the kind of father Dad is. Brandon cleared his throat, emotion evident. Isaiah, the fact that you call me Dad still means everything to me. And seeing you step up for Rebecca and your baby, I've never been more proud. Over the next months, Brandon and Janelle helped Isaiah and Rebecca navigate the challenges ahead. They provided financial support while Isaiah worked part-time and stayed in school. They helped Rebecca find good prenatal care. They converted one of the guest rooms into a nursery, with Diane and Daniel painting and decorating enthusiastically. When Rebecca went into labor, Janelle was there alongside Isaiah, coaching them both through it the way Brandon had coached her all those years ago. And when their granddaughter, Emma, was born, Janelle held her and marveled at the circle completing itself. She's beautiful, Janelle whispered to Isaiah. You're going to be an amazing father. I learned from the best, Isaiah said, looking at Brandon, who stood nearby, holding Rebecca's hand. Both of you showed me what real parenting looks like. Not perfect, but present, not demanding perfection, but giving love. Later in the hospital cafeteria grabbing coffee while the new parents bonded with Emma, Brandon took Janelle's hand. We're grandparents, he said, wonder in his voice. We are. Feels surreal. Feels right. He pulled her close. 15 years ago, you were in a hospital having Isaiah, scared and alone until I showed up. Now Isaiah is doing the same thing, but he has Rebecca. He has us. He has a whole support system. That's what we built, Janelle. Not just our family, but this legacy of showing up, of loving people through their hardest moments. He's going to be okay, Janelle said. They both are, because they have each other and they have us. Just like we had each other. Brandon kissed her temple. Full circle, love. Everything comes full circle. That night, back home with Diane and Daniel asleep and the house quiet, Janelle stood at the window looking out at the city lights. Brandon came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. What are you thinking? About that restaurant, about Derek's cruelty, about how the worst moment of my life led to everything good in it. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't intervened? Sometimes. But then I remember, I didn't need you to save me. I was already saving myself. You just made the journey less lonely, made it possible to believe I deserved happiness. You always deserved it. I know that now. It took you showing me, but I know. She turned in his arms to face him. Thank you, Brandon Hammond, for seeing me, for staying, for building this life with me, for being the father Isaiah needed, the husband I deserved, and the partner I chose every single day. Thank you for letting me, for taking a chance on a stranger in a restaurant, for trusting me with your heart and your son, for making me a father, a husband, a better man. His hands framed her face, thumbs stroking her cheeks. I love you, Janelle. I loved you that first night. I love you more now, and I'll love you even more with every year we have together. That's still mathematically impossible, she teased, echoing their old joke, and I'll still spend my life proving you wrong. He kissed her then, and it held everything, their past, their present, their future. All the fear they'd overcome, all the love they'd built, all the family they'd created together. When they finally pulled apart, Janelle rested her forehead against his. So, what happens next in our story? More grandchildren probably, knowing our kids, growing old together definitely, watching our legacy continue through them, building more memories, making more difference through our foundation. He smiled. And mostly, just continuing to choose each other every single day. Because that's what real love is, not the dramatic gestures or fairy tale endings, but the daily choice to stay, to grow, to love, even when it's not easy. I choose you, Janelle whispered, today, tomorrow, always. And I choose you, every day for the rest of our lives. They stood there in the quiet of their home, wrapped around each other, and Janelle thought about the journey from that restaurant to this moment, about how trauma could become triumph, how crisis could become blessing, how one stranger's kindness could change everything. Derek had been right about one thing, she realized with irony. That baby, Isaiah, had changed everything. But not in the way Derek thought. Isaiah hadn't trapped her or ruined her life. He'd opened it, created space for Brandon to enter, made possible this family, this love. This life that was more beautiful than anything she'd imagined. "Thank you, Isaiah," she whispered to the night, to the universe, to the child who was now a father himself. "Thank you for being exactly who you are, for bringing us all together, for teaching me what real love looks like." Brandon's arms tightened around her, and she knew he understood. Their family, unconventional from the start, built on choice rather than obligation, strengthened by adversity, was exactly what it needed to be. Perfect in its imperfection, real in its messiness, lasting in its foundation of daily choices to love well. And as they headed to bed, hands linked, 20 years of marriage between them and hopefully many more ahead, Janelle felt profound gratitude. Not for Derek's cruelty exactly, but for what it had made possible, for the path it had cleared, for the ending it had prevented so the right beginning could happen. Sometimes, she thought as Brandon pulled her close in their bed, the worst moments of our lives are really just the universe clearing the way for the best ones. And sometimes, the stranger who extends his hand in your darkest hour becomes the love of your life, the father of your children, the partner you needed without knowing it. Sometimes, "this baby isn't mine" transforms into "this baby is ours." And that transformation, built on choice and commitment and daily acts of love, is the most beautiful story of all. Dear Love Diaries here, and what a journey Janelle and Brandon took us on. Their story reminds us that our worst moments don't define us, how we rise from them does, that the love we think we don't deserve might be exactly what we need. That family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who choose to stay when everyone else walks away. What about you? Have you ever had someone see your worth when you couldn't see it yourself? Have you ever been surprised by love in unexpected circumstances? Share your stories in the comments. I love hearing from you. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe to Dear Love Diaries for more stories about love, resilience, and second chances. Tomorrow, we have another incredible journey to share with you. Until then, remember, you are worthy of love exactly as you are. Your circumstances don't define your worth. And sometimes the best chapters of our lives begin on the worst days.